Here we go again with Wittenberg Academy's Greek 2 course. We are ready for Lesson 22 in Gleason's Greek Primer, the aorist and future indicative passive. So we need to learn the aorist and future indicative passive. It's at section 701, which is on page 260 what? 266. So the indicative first passive system. So you know the aorist is alethane, and then the same stem is used for the future. So drop the epsilon augment for the from the aorist. So that leaves you with the stem leth, and then in the future you're adding the thase. And then amai, psi, tai, methus, the untai. So, and then again in the aorist, the endings ain, ace, a, amen, eta, ason. So you just need to make your typical paradigm card for these two forms, the aorist passive and the future passive. So notice these are different than, formed on a different stem than the aorist middle and the future middle. So again, if you have, I recommend you put a little sticky note on page 325 so that you can easily find our paradigm verb. Right at the bottom of the first column on page 325 are the six principal parts of luo. Luo, luso, elusa, lelica, lelamai, alethane. So the first principal part is present indicative active. It's called the dictionary form. When you want to look up a verb in the dictionary, you look it up by its first person indicative active. Add a sigma and then the same endings and you get the future tense. That's the second principal part, the future indicative active. The third principal part is the aorist indicative active, which for a normal verb is the augment plus the stem plus the sigma plus these aorist endings. The fourth principal part is the perfect, which is reduplication plus the stem plus kappa plus these alpha endings. Fifth principal part is the perfect middle voice, middle passive voice, and that's reduplication, stem, and then no connecting vowel, no connecting consonant, just my, psi, tai, methus, the untai. And then the sixth principal part is the aorist indicative passive. Augment, stem, and then these theta endings. Well, theta and then the ain, ace, a, amen, eta, ason endings. So you need to know how to form each and every one of those regular principal parts for a regular verb. All right, back on page 64. Notice that they are formed from a new stem, which we just went over. And again, he gives you in this first part, section 223, he gives you all these rules for how consonants combine. Those can be helpful. At this point, you simply need to be able to reproduce all these verb forms. So if his explanation helps you, fine. But for many verbs, you're just going to need to memorize their principal parts when you learn them, which we'll get to in a moment with our vocabulary. In some verbs, a second aorist passive is found instead of the aorist in the. The stem is formed by adding e, lengthened in the indicative, to a, to the verb stem as agraphane from grapho. The second aorist passive is inflected like the aorist in the. So it has the same endings, ain, ace, a, amen, eta, ason. And I recommend you simply learn these as they're irregular aorist passives. And so you need to learn them when you learn a vocabulary word, which we'll get to in a moment. Verbs in which the second aorist passive occurs have also a second future passive. Makes sense. They're made on the same stem. 226, model sentences. And these are about the use of genitive to express price. Ebu le drachmes apadostai. Are you willing to sell of a drachma? You know, of a drachma. So that the genitive expresses price. B, upaludaxios hutos. This fellow's not good of much. He is not worthy of much. He's not worthy, he's not good for much. So again, price or worth in Greek is expressed in the genitive. Rule of syntax, well, it's just what we said. The genitive is used to express price or value. Vocabulary. Hey agora, the marketplace, the agora. Hey darekos is a derrick, a Persian gold coin worth about 540. Well, it's about 1/4 of an ounce of gold. So today it's worth a lot more than 540. It's worth what? $400? Doxa. Hey doxa, reputation, fame, or glory. Hey drachme is an Attic silver piece. It's about a day's wage, so it's not 18 cents anymore. It's quite a bit more. Hey Irene, peace. The name Irene, peace. Ha limos, hunger. Axios, axia, axion is worthy or worth. Agorazo. And now here, okay, here's a set of 6 principal parts for a verb. Agorazo, agoraso, agorasa, agoraka, agorasmai, agorasthein. To frequent the market or buy, to go to the agora, to buy. Now this is completely regular if you've memorized how sigmas and kappas attach to the letter zeta, because this verb stem ends in zeta. And when a sigma is added to a zeta, the zeta just goes away. When a kappa is added to a zeta, it just goes away. But other than that, it's completely regular. Here's another one. Bulamai, bulesamai, babulemai, abulethein. Now here's a verb that does not have all 6 principal parts. It's, first of all, it's a deponent verb, so it only has middle passive endings, but it's translated with an active sense in English. So bulamai, I wish, that's the present indicative active. Bulesamai, that's the future indicative active. Babulemai, that is the perfect indicative active. And abulethein, that's the aorist indicative active. Now, I say they're indicative active because this is a deponent verb. Now, they're middle or passive in form. So that's just something you have to get used to when it comes to deponent verbs. They're middle passive in form, but they're active in meaning. Okay. Paroomai, parosamai, pareomai, eparethein, advance, proceed, or go. Again, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 principal parts because it's a deponent. So it's first is present tense, second principal part is future, third principal part is perfect, and fourth principal part is aorist passive there. All right. Autika is an adverb meaning immediately or at once, and hex is an indeclinable number, the number 6. So, elite, translate that. Elite, that's, let's parse it first. That's aorist, passive, third person singular, from luo. So it means he, she, or it was loosed or destroyed. Lithesatai, future passive. He, she, or it will be loosed or destroyed. Eparothesan, he, she, or excuse me, they were, or they advanced. They went forward. Again, it's passive in form, but you've got to know that the verb is pareomai, which is deponent, so it has an active translation. Elithesan, they were loosed, aorist passive. Akelostes, akelostes. So what do we have here? The verb is kaleo, right? So it's just I command. So it's got an augment, it's got the stem, it's got this thais ending. It's aorist passive. You got a little note there on where that extra sigma comes from, but it shouldn't be confusing. That's aorist passive. You were ordered. Kekelosmai, that's perfect, right, with the reduplication. Middle passive. I was ordered. Kaleosthesatai, he, she, or it will be ordered. Future passive. Ekoluthe, simple aorist. He, she, or it was persecuted, pursued, hindered. Epideuthemen, we were educated. Aorist passive. Herpasthane, I was snatched. Aorist passive. Abulata, that's just a nice, normal, imperfect. He was planning. He was making a counsel. Abulete, again, it's passive in form, but this is a deponent. Not planning, but wish. So he wished, abulata, he was wishing. Abulete, I wished, or rather, he wished, aorist. And ekthesan, that's from ago, so they were brought. Okay, so we know all 6 principal parts now, which is excellent. We're ready to build on that knowledge. Once you have reviewed these forms and vocabulary for this lesson, you'll be ready to do your translations. I'll go ahead and make a separate video for that because this one's getting long as it is.